Hey, Blue Table fans. I just got out of makeup and I'm ready to do this video. No, I'm not. For some reason, this tripod doesn't seem to be quite level. I always got to put one end down like an inch. Am I imagining it? I don't know. All right, guys. So first off, I'm going to talk about a project I'm working on. I have no reason to want to talk about it. I want to be clear. I'm not promoting anything. I really don't care. I'm running things in just such a wonderful stress-free way. Virtually stress-free. Not completely. Can you ever completely get rid of it? That'd be a good talk. Yeah, that's what I should ramble about. I should ramble about positivity. All right, so here's the deal. The year's 1982. I'm in junior high school. We've got dot matrix printers. Some of you may remember those. I was born in '69, and so that I was in 6th grade. I discovered role-playing games at age 12, and at age 13, I had already made my own system. It's called Quest. I still have it, by the way. I have a box full of all my handwritten and typed and word processed notes for all my games for 35 years. It's crazy. A lot of them now are just on my laptop. And oh my gosh, where to begin with that? So the introduction to this, a 13-year-old Sean is bagging on Dungeons & Dragons, saying it's not a very good system. It's not a very realistic system. So I must have read it and understood it. So anyway, then I played GURPS. I've played, oh my gosh, so many systems, a lot of them my own homebrews. And of course, Quest. We did Quest for many years. And quite frankly, I got to tell you, looking back, I wish I would have created some IP. Oh, that's not right either. I wish I would have created some IP. And even, you know, my mom worked at a copy shop. I could have self-published and just stapled them all, did 50 copies, put copyright on there, figured out the system, and had something. Because what they were doing for Dungeons & Dragons in the early 70s, it was all home stapled. Like, it was something, it was not high tech. You know, the illustrations were not better than what my junior high and high school friends could have done. And so, but, oh well, I was having a good time, and the good time was had, and that can never be erased. You can make that your ringtone. All right, so then around 2008, Wizards of the Coast, then the owners now, at that time, of Dungeons & Dragons, made 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons, which I bought all the books, played it. I never thought anything about it. I'm like, oh, well, this is what they're doing. This is a new version, but apparently people didn't like it. And Pathfinder, with the open gaming license, became, how many times I've told this story? Aren't you guys sick of it yet? They became the new thing. So I played Pathfinder for a long time, over 10 years. And I own probably a stack, 6 feet tall Pathfinder books. I recently just sold them to a local game shop. So those are all gone. Like, I went to my kids, I'm like, hey, are we going to ever play Pathfinder 1st edition again? And they were like, no, Dad, we're not going to do that. And then with Pathfinder 2, because we were like really, you know, we were hard for Pathfinder 1.0. And when they came out with 2.0, we were like, you know, we liked that. We liked the crunch. We liked the creep. We liked this power spread. We liked all of that. And that's what made Pathfinder Pathfinder. And that's what made early Dungeons & Dragons the Dungeons & Dragons of the 80s and 90s. They just published all this stuff for it, and you needed some erudition, you needed some education, you needed some nerdiness. You needed to be able to read 600 words a minute or whatever to actually understand this game and play this game. And so, would it be funny if there was something funny on the, on the thing, like bluetablestore.com or whatever? All right, anyway. Yeah, and I love that. And I still have a 1st edition Dungeon Master's Guide. And let me tell you, the typeset is really small. Like, it's thick with information. Gary Gygax was a machine. He was cracking it. He was typing so much. And by the way, I'm typing about as much as he did. these days. Like I can sit down, I can write 1,000 to 3,000 words a day quite easily. And of course they need to be edited, but the stuff I write, it's thick with ideas. It's thick with concepts. And some days I can just feel them, like I can just feel it pouring out of my head, like just ideas after ideas after ideas, cool names and concepts and things to try. And so I'm like, awesome. You know, and I've got a little shrine to Gary Gygax up in the corner. I don't really, but I've thought of doing it as a joke. So anyway, yeah, and you can be Facebook friends with like his kids online. It's weird. And in a good way. It's like they're out there. They seem very humble. They're kind of doing their own things. I mean, like it or not, they kind of have their dad's legacy over them. And Ernie, Luke, Heidi, and then I guess that's just the wife of one of them. So anyway, so sometimes I wonder if my kids might have just a tiny little bit of that because their dad is very slightly, only a little bit, internet famous. And so, you know, and I'm like, hey, let's make videos, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think they want to do it. I know Jonah doesn't want to do it. Like, that's not really his thing. I don't know. That might change later. But, you know, they can be their own people. So, all right, so back to my thing. So I've recently started compiling all of that, all my ideas. And when I do a campaign, like a homebrew thing, man, there is a lot in it. So I've started collating and reformatting all that stuff and creating a player's handbook. And I'm really excited. A player's handbook and campaign guide kind of squashed together. Now, I looked at... Here, hold on, I want to show you something. I looked at the Player's Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons and looked at in terms of like just how thick it is. I'm like, how many words is in this? And I estimate it's 220,000 words. But I'm not sure because some of it is like really thin, like these stat blocks, you know. So I was like, well, you know, I'm not an idiot. I'm looking at this stuff. I'm like, you know, I can read this. I understand. I can write this same type of text, and in terms of like the thickness and sort of the what's that called? The vocabulary, the complexity of the vocabulary. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'm going to write a player's handbook. So I've been working on it 3 winters now, 2020, 2021, 2022, and of course that spills over. This is still the winter of that year. And I'm currently at 122,000 words. I'm really excited about it. So I created a system. I thought about it for a long time. I've had ideas for like many years. Haven't seen these ideas necessarily in other places. Of course, you know, where do things come from? All right, so, hold on, where was I going with that? I'm talking about my own thing. So, my system, and the reason I gave you that background is that my system is filling a niche, which I don't think is really filled overly much right now. So you have people so there's 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and for old guys like me, we look at that and it looks different. They've captured a lot of the spirit of it, and I think a lot of it is so lovely, but it's missing a lot of that old stuff. And that's given rise to OSR, which is old school rules. And of course Pathfinder has done well because they have filled in their own niche. Like they kind of cater to the classic Dungeons & Dragons feel. And this is like back in 2008. Now, Pathfinder 2.0, they're pulling a Dungeons & Dragons 4.0 with that. They were just like, it should be balanced and it should be clear. And it's like, well, that's something different then. And so Pathfinder 2.0 is apparently very I'm sure there's a lot of good things about it. Boy, am I gonna, I might stir up some hearty comments here. It's not my intention, guys. But I'm going to leave the comments open because I think, this is something interesting to me. All right. So anyway, back to my system. I talked to one of my players. I was telling him a little bit about it, and he was like, and I was like, well, should I just change my thing to be 5th edition compatible? And he was like, I don't think you should, because what you're describing to me, some people are going to want that. Some people are playing the game, and they're going to want some crunch. And so, so my thing isn't old school rules. It's not streamlined. It's not like 5th edition. It's something sitting out in a different area of the field. And so my thing, it is complicated. It's oh man, but not complex for complexity's sake. It has a lot of depth. Let me give you some examples. So an important part of my game system, which has a name, I'm still working on, like, do I want to copyright things? Do things need to be trademarked? What's the expense, and like how does that all work? So anyway, with my system, conditions aren't just like, oh, here's 12 different conditions that you can have, and you either have them or you don't have them. I have levels of conditions, and you can have up to 6 levels. And so every condition has stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now some of them are very simple, where it's like, well, if you have stage 2, it just mathematically increases. And you can get rid of them, but you can get rid of them only by stages as well. So when you're playing this game, you better be paying attention, and you better not be on your phone. It requires a lot of focus and experienced players who know what they're doing and can pay attention to it. So it takes about as much to play a character as it does to play a Warhammer 40K army when you're playing in a tournament. Like, there's a lot you got to pay attention to. And the rounds are timed. Timed in the sense that you get a bonus if you finish your turn in 15 seconds. So, and I've tried this system before, and let me tell you, it works. Everyone is leaning over the table, paying attention to what's going on. And when it's someone's turn, they're like, bam, I do this, I got an 18, that's a hit, I've rolled the damage. Whatever it is, you got to get it done in 15 seconds. But you don't have to. You can take longer. You just don't get this little tiny bonus. But you do, on the net, an adventuring party, you're going to need the accumulation of that bonus in order to not just get absolutely crushed. So this system is not for beginners, and it's not for people that are playing on their phone. And but it's for players who have mastered 5th edition, Pathfinder, all of these things. In fact, I'd say it's probably got 2.3 times the crunch of Pathfinder. But at this time, with just 122,000 words, it lacks the depth. Like, I need to be writing a ton more stuff. But I'm going to not just add more stuff, this amorphous mass where, like in Pathfinder, feats. They ended up with, like, there were 4 feats that did basically the same thing. And it was so complicated that you couldn't, like, if you just had the books, no way that you could understand Pathfinder 1.0. You had to go online where other people had collated all the information. So I'm trying to avoid that as well. And so I've got a lot of great ideas. My system is very refined. It needs a ton of play testing. And we're going to be starting that in February this year. February, March 2023 is going to be a pretty exciting time for me. And Blue Table Painting. Okay, so hold on. Let me finish topic number 1. So my role-playing system, totally excited about it. It's got a lot of cool things about how it works. Let me explain a little bit more about it. So normally, like in a game like Dungeons and Dragons, it's a menu, and you're like, okay, what do you want your race to be? It's like, okay, now that you pick that, there's 3 sub races, so pick those, and then you get some things from that. You get, maybe at first level you might have like 4 things from that selection, and then it's like, okay, selection number 2, I'm going to choose a class, and that's an important one. and then you kind of get some things from that. You might get 5 or 6 things from that, but it's a prefixed menu. Like you just pick from these things. They already sort of grouped into that group. And then you'd select like your background. How am I doing? Good, 15 minutes. So with the system that I'm doing, it's point buy. So you have 350 points, and you just pick from a lot of different areas, and you could make something from scratch. You could make your own race if you wanted to. So everything in the game, so you get attributes, which is 10 is the base, and then for 5 points you can add 1. There's a limitation though. Everything has a limitation of 10%. 10% of total points. So none of your powers or abilities can be more than 10% of how many points you have to spend. And you get points, so if you go up to 2nd level, now you get 50 more points. So there are levels. It only goes 1 to 10 though, but there are rules in there for going up to 20. And so you basically, so at 1st level you can't pick any ability or power that's more than 35 points. So you could spend 35 points, say, on your strength and get 17 strength. But you couldn't get 18 because that would be 40 points. And you can't have anything that's more than 10% of your total points. See how that works? And the whole thing is designed where if you pick a power, there's ways, usually there's ways to augment it as you go up in level. You could spend more points on that power as long as you didn't go over the 10%. And of course, obviously, there's some exceptions based on different vagaries of how it works. So basically, you pick a race, and that's a big one. So you can only pick one, and that opens up a suite of powers that you can purchase. And so you could purchase one of them, or you could purchase 10 of them. But there's also a section called Common Powers, which is a huge selection of abilities that you can get, where, I mean, you could have wings, an animal companion, you could have a patron, for example, that gives you extra money, and stuff like that. So from the common powers, you could just make up the race. You could look at the background of the game and you just make a race that you wanted based on those common powers and your attributes. So it's super flexible, and the other stuff is just it's just flavor, because you can even take one of the races and you're allowed to completely reskin something. So you could just be like, okay, well, my thing does the exact same thing, but instead of, an insectoid, my guy is, this creature from the ocean or whatever. So one of the possible downsides is there can be too much variation. But if you read the background of how it is, or with the game world, it accounts logically for those variations. All right, and then, so you also buy skills. So your skills, like in 5th edition, they're based off of your attributes, and you can buy no skills and just try and do them off of your attributes. However, once you start purchasing them with points, you get basic training and advanced training, and basically it's 5 points per +1 in the skill. And of course, as usual, you can't go over the 10% limit in a certain skill, because the skills are also considered to be powers. And but the skills in mind, because usually in a game system, especially a fantasy game system, skills are just like, skills. I have these skills, and you're not using them that much. And if, like in 5th edition, there's 20 skills, maybe 5 of them are going to be used a lot, and then the other ones are they're incidental. You didn't pay anything to be invested in them. But in my system, skills are a big deal. And there's reasons for that. But one of them is that skills have practical effects. Like as you become more skilled, it unlocks like powers. So if you have a good medicine skill, or you have a good nature skill, which is like herbalism, and I wrote my own descriptions and defined them how I felt best. So anyway, if you have that, like nature or medicine, you can heal more during your downtime. And so I dialed it back a little more towards first edition, a little bit, where it's a little harder, and I expect this is not a game for new players, especially if you're using miniatures. The game, my system is designed to be played with miniatures. You can play it without miniatures; it's not a problem. You can do what is it called, like Roll20 or any sort of virtual tabletop. It would work just fine with that. But it is, all the notations are separated out also for miniatures as well. And that's the big difference, is that most role-playing systems, they are role-playing games, and then as an afterthought, they're miniatures battles games. Or at most, they're just those grid things. Oh, you're just moving at 5 squares, and they do it like that, like Pathfinder. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying the one that I made is like there's no grid. You do it like a game of Necromunda, for example, or any type of skirmish game. So yeah, who cares about Necromunda? A skirmish game in general has the feel that you'll have playing my game, because the mode is called Tactical Combat, which is meant to be more like a miniatures battles game. And there are, if you really want to play it, you're going to need 10 templates. Crazy! So 3 of those are spray templates, which look a little bit like what you find in Privateer Press, or you can just use a 1-inch wide ruler, and the spray template would work like that. And I'm very specific. I don't leave a lot of gray areas where it's like, well, how do you position it? What about this? What about going up and down? I explain all that. And in a lot of games, I'm just like, man, you made this game, you published it. Why'd you get so lazy and not have, you could have just wrote all the FAQs right into it. And so I'm like, I have that in mind, and it's crunchy. It's advanced for miniatures battles players and people who have been role playing for a while, and I've already done that. So okay, so back to making a character. So in my system, you could open the document and you would make a character by cut and pasting. You would go through all the different sections, and anything that was interesting to you, you would highlight it, paste it into your thing. It would have a point total next to it, and that's it. You probably have 2 or 3 pages of just cut and pasted, and you could simplify it, obviously. In fact, I thought of ultimately making a simplified version of my rule book that just had the bare minimum under each power description, so you could cut and paste and you could save space on it. You don't need the description of the whatever it is. And spells, which in my system are called patterns, like weaving magical threads and stuff. They are. There's a lot of them. For one, I made at least 200. The Player's Handbook, I think, has 270 spells in it. Oh, that's a lot. So I have what are called common patterns, and those are. So the way I've designed the system is that probably everybody's going to have a little bit of spell casting in it. The barrier to be a spellcaster, it's 30 points. So out of your 350 points, if you spend 30, you can have spell casting. And then of course you could be a dedicated spellcaster, you could be a dedicated martial fighter type, but the combination and the different things you pick, they could really, 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 really change the flavor of your character. And spending those points, you think 350 is a lot, but it's not. It's going to go real fast, and to be good at something, you're going to have to spend, you're going to have to invest in it. And so anyway, so common powers, with just common powers, you can make your own race. You forget about races. The other thing you pick is a human land, which is where you're from, and there's a ton of those. And you are allowed, in some cases, to have a couple. I grew up here, and then I moved here, and then you can have powers from those 2 different things. And again, the common powers they're probably enough to build almost anything that you could think of. So And of course, with the reskinning ability, you can make the thing that you want and basically pick the things that you want. And then there's cults, which is for spell casting. They basically get a suite of patterns, maybe 10 to 20 of them, that really, 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 those things have flavor. And then there's psionics. And my psionics are awesome. And there's basically, it's consistent with the rest of the rules system, but it's kind of its own mini game in there to, have psionic battles and stuff like that. So psionics are awesome. They're probably only about 50 to 60% of the patterns thing, and I definitely want to expand those out later. But I got to the point where I got the basics in there. Everything that you would think of a psionicist doing, I've already covered that. So I got basically, I wanted to have 9 disciplines. I've written 5. See if I remember them. There's telepathy, telekinesis, sentience, like clairsentience, and biotransmogrification, and pyrokinesis. And pyrokinesis can be different things too. You could have it. Like you could just say, well, I'm doing cryokinesis, or what I call lux kinesis, light powers. So, oh my gosh, and there's auxiliary races, like all these different creatures that come from different areas. And the races are cool. Like, listen, I love old school rules, but you open them, it's the same thing. I bought one recently. I'm like, oh look, hold person. And my patterns are all like, they're different, and it's a lot of them too. It's a couple hundred, and they are like, you're gonna have to really read through this book to figure it out. And what I'm hoping is that the people that get it they have that magic. You can have. I want a 55-year-old to have that same magic as when they were opening that first edition player's handbook and just reading through all these spells and these and I was just, oh my gosh, what is this? Yeah. And writing it, I'm having that experience. Like, it's really, 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 really super cool. So anyway, you go into a game shop and there's this book there, Terranoth or whatever, the Seventh Sea, and you could tell that they were passion projects. They were labors of love, and like every old beardy DM has their homebrew thing, and they're like, oh, mine's just as good, and I'm making fun of myself because I'm that guy. That's exactly what I'm doing, and but I'm 53, and I'm like, you know what, Sean? You can't die with your song inside you. Better open your mouth. You better get it out there. Do your things, and and make this life what you want. So my goal is to get at least 50 copies of my book done. And so what do I got to do? I got to play test it. I got to edit it. I've got to get a alpha and beta testing. I think that's what it's called, out of the way. And be ready in about a year for a finished product. Then it's got to be reformatted, because right now I'm just using Word doc. And then you've got art. Art is the big one. That's going to be an expense. And again, it's a labor of love. I'm not doing a Kickstarter for it. I don't think so, at least. And I want to have nice art for it. And if I got my druthers, I'm going to be using real artists to make real artwork. That'd be amazing. But I need 100 pieces times, I don't know, $500 each. It's a lot of money. So I'm not sure where to go or how to do it. I'm just proceeding forth with what I can do now. And then, obviously, it has to be published. I got to hire somebody to, like, how does that work? How do I get 50 copies of my book done, hardback? And, but to just do it, if I get to a certain point, I'll go to the copy shop and just have them done. I'll staple them myself. But it's getting out there. It's happening. There's no way. I'm not gonna die with this book still not done. And those 50 copies, I'll probably just give some to friends, maybe sell some, but it's not going to be a giant thing. Although it would be nice to make my living, like doing this, like if I just had to write this stuff and write modules and things, and that's what I did, that'd be fantastic. And don't get me wrong, I love blue table painting. I do not mind filling out them spreadsheets, talking to clients, taking the pictures of the models, getting in there and painting. That's all totally cool. I really like that. But I've been thinking recently that I might want a side hustle to my side hustle. A side hustle. All right, guys, that's all I got to say about that. If you've watched this far, thank you very much. And if you like my video, I don't care. Do it, don't do it, watch it, don't watch it. It's all the same to me. I'm already having a good time. My life is complete. I could drop dead today and feel like I did it all. And but what I wanted, Sean, shut up. Give me some topics to talk about. That'd be really cool. And then I'll do those on the next video. All right, well, I cracked 31 minutes, so I hope you got your inspiration or your background noise.